Okay, once again, thank you everybody for attending. I'm going to open up the mic so you can choose to either mute yourselves or speak up. This is an open webinar, so please do feel free to ask questions at any time. Okay, I'll get started. What this webinar is going to show you is how to bring the study of culture alive to your students, how to stimulate their curiosity about their cultural heritage and the histories around them, encouraging students as well to explore and document those traditions, following the methods that folklorists practice, and we'll teach you how to access teacher resources and other inspirational materials that can help students get started with the challenge, and how to guide students to get online support resources, including options to chat with experts from Smithsonian as well as past winners. Okay. All right, hold 1 minute. The PowerPoint is not forwarding.
Okay.
My apologies for that. Thank you for your patience. All right, so what is the Folklorist Challenge? The Folklorist Challenge is a global challenge, and it's an annual competition, and it invites students to, like I mentioned previously, engage with their cultural heritage by immersing themselves in a particular cultural tradition. Those traditions allow them to, or investigating those traditions and documenting them allows them to connect with their community, and then we encourage them as a final product to share those traditions with the world, basically in a 6-minute video presentation. As you can see from the examples shown, they come from a variety of forms of folklore, including movement as well as creativity. Betty, folklorist expert, is going to speak to you a little bit more in detail about the types of folklore in a minute. Okay, I'd like to take just a minute to show you an interesting video that you could share with your students to help get them inspired for this year's challenge. All right. Now that you've seen some of the diverse ways this challenge can inspire students, you're most likely wondering, how do I support my students in creating their own entries? And this is how we're going to answer that question. Briefly, we're going to spend some time introducing ourselves, and we'll provide a high-level overview of the challenge, again, what it is and what it involves for students. Then we're going to invite Vinod Nambiar, the representative of the winner from the 14+ team category in last year's challenge. And then Betty will speak to you, Betty Belanus from Smithsonian Institution will speak to you about how to teach the folklorist process and what its benefits are. And then I'll finish up by providing you a little information on how you can provide online, direct students to online support resources and other resources. Okay. Betty, I'll turn to you to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Betty Belanus. I'm a Ph.D. in folklore, as well as being an educator, and have worked with many teachers in the past and also curate programs for the Smithsonian Folklife Festival. Very excited to be sharing this challenge with you, and I hope you have a lot of good questions.
Okay, Vinod.
Yeah, sure. Myself, Vinod, I'm from India, and it was very interesting to participate the last year's the challenge, and it had a lot of opportunities for our students as well as for people who work in that. Made a lot of impact in the community. Myself, by profession, I'm a computer engineer, but having passion for folklore and traditional knowledge. And we have a small NGO in India, and we are working, trying to connect the youth to the tradition and knowledge. Actually, I look forward to the entire presentation and talking to you all. Thank you.
Thank you. And my name is Charles. I'm an education consultant with Cricket Media. I'm a former teacher, social studies teacher at the 6 to 8 level, and I've also spent the last about 8 years in the educational publishing field, working to produce both print and digital products for students. So we're all happy to be here with you today. The first thing I'd like to do is give you kind of a high-level overview of the general timeline of the challenge. So the official start is just a few days away on August 1st. Students have several months to prepare and make and then submit their entries. The deadline is November 30th at midnight, and that is Eastern Time in the United States. Then on December 12th, after a panel of judges from both Cricket Media and Smithsonian Institution have scored every entry, we'll announce the winners, both individual and team, for each of the 3 age categories, 8 to 10, 11 to 13, and 14 plus. And then on December 30th, after we have a feature of our website I'll show you in a minute, where we open up all the winning entries, and we allow the public to vote on them, and that's called the EPOW's Choice Award. On December 30th, the voting will close and we'll announce the winner. Okay, so while Betty will speak to this in much more detail, I want to answer the question, how does the challenge benefit students? Because as teachers and parents, that's the primary thing that you're most interested in. Why bring my student challenge? Why engage them with this experience? First and foremost, as we've spoken to, it engages students with the cultural resources and the history of their particular community. And in so doing, it provides a pathway for them to build and then maintain relationships with their community at large. Academically, it also strengthens their research and presentation skills, as well as gives them a chance to learn real-world skills that professionals use, professional folklorists. It also supports broad national technology standards, as well as standards relating to critical thinking and the development of global awareness. And last but not least, it certainly inspires kids and motivates them, because kids love having an audience, and the way that we demonstrate every kid's entry, regardless of whether or not they won an award in any category, it reaches a global audience, and I'll show you that interactive map later as well. So this is a few images taken from our website from last year's challenge. When we announce the winners, we also display them on the website, each in their own category. We also give awards for honorable mention, ones that did not win but came very close, and often the judging is extremely close because we receive a lot of quality entries from all age categories. And then the next thing that I'd like to show you is all students do have a chance to reach this global audience, and what you see here is that just under 1 million people came to vote for all the winners of last year's competition in the EPOW's Choice Award vote. And on this interactive map, which I'll take you to in just a moment, it not only displays the winners, but again, all other students' entries. So it's a really, really neat feature, and students' work is permanently there, as we don't refresh the map, we just build upon it. It has every entry since the beginning of this competition several years ago. I'll take you to the map and show you that. Okay, so this is the map. It's interactive, as I said before. You can zoom out, zoom in to any continent, and these different icons here represent the different types of entries, which we'll be going over with you a little bit later. But each entry, if you click on it, you will be able to see the entry itself and also where it came from and a little bit of more information about it, such as the name of the tradition featured and the tradition bearer. So this is a really neat feature to show to your students and get them excited about participating in this challenge. Okay, and last but not least, one of the benefits for students is that they can win prizes. And some of these prizes are really neat, especially if your student is highly interested in the exploration of culture, which most likely they are if they want to participate in this challenge. So they can win Folkways Recordings box set, a 1-year subscription to Faces magazine by Cricket Media, which is a magazine that focuses on a particular culture in each issue. That includes 9 issues, a digital camera to help them explore, Little Passports World Coin Collection, and a 1-year subscription to the Little Passports World Explorer kit, which is a geography kit that comes on on a monthly basis, each month featuring a different country and gives kids different tools to explore that country. And then last but not least, Smithsonian Institution's Field Notes Prize Pack, which you'll actually see a component of that a little bit later on. It's one of the resources we provide for kids in this challenge. So I'm going to pass it to Betty Belanus at this point to explain what is folklore to you.
Okay, thanks, Charles. Well, folklore is, pretty simply traditions that are passed from generation to the next. And you may think that this is something old. It is, but it's also very dynamic because traditions change all the time and stay new as well. There are many different definitions of folklore. Am I still here? Yes. That there are many different kinds of folklore: dance, music, foodways, architecture, art, and we're going to talk about some of those categories that we've isolated for the kids in a minute.
Betty, I apologize. This is Charles. I was changing the sound so we wouldn't hear the background noise. Could you just go over the second part just a little bit about the different types of folklore, what you said about that?
Sure. I was just pointing out the second definition here has a lot of ideas of what folklore is, the whole range of belief and practices, and ways that people have of doing things they don't learn from a book, but things that they learn from older people or from their peer group. And it's just really exciting, the range of traditions that are possible for kids to explore. Okay. So when we were putting together the challenge initially, we thought about what are some of the dynamic ways that kids could get involved in this, and what are some of the categories that we could isolate for them to have a range. So we came up with the terms moving, creating, performing, celebrating, and working. And this really has a broad appeal for kids. Some of them are more interested in performance aspects or musical instruments. Some are more interested in celebrations. Some are interested in how people work and do different crafts and skills. And some are more interested in moving, you know, the kinds of movement things like martial arts or dance, and the creativity aspect. So kids have been really great at entering in these different categories, as you can see from some of the past ones, and I hope that you'll explore the website and see some of the ways that they've done that in the past. So we initially talked out, so what is it that a professional folklorist does, and how could we make this fun for kids by isolating what the process is that they can go through and do their video or their piece. So the very first thing that folklorists do is research. They do some background on what they're going to study. So we put that aspect in as first, and then documenting, actually going out and interviewing someone, taking photographs, doing video, learning how something is made or how a dance is done, those kinds of things, and then interpreting. So what do you do with the documentation once you have it? Putting it into a story that is engaging, and in this case 6 minutes or less, and then presenting, taking their draft, their what they've put together, and sharing it with people and getting some feedback, just as you would with having them do another project, and then polishing it up and sharing it with us for the competition. It takes a little bit of doing, as I know that Vinod will tell you in working with the kids he worked with, but I think that, as Charles said, the benefits of getting them connected to someone in their community in this way, through finding out more and then actually going through the documentation, the interview process, and then really polishing this into a story that is engaging for many people, is it's what folklorists do, and it's something that kids seem to have found you know, a lot of excitement in the.
Thanks, Betty. And this is what we're inviting you to do for your students, is invite them into this challenge, show them what it's about, get them excited about connecting to their community in one of the ways that Betty described. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you, I'm going to first, we'll soon pass it to Vinod, and he'll explain to you in detail some of his experiences as well as his students' experiences in the process of creating their entry for last year's challenge, which was about mat weaving traditions in India. Before Vinod begins and before I pass it off, I'm going to show just a short clip from his student's entry.
Kilimangalam, a small village in Thrissur district of Kerala, is famous for its traditional choreograph meets. It is called Pulpaya in Malayalam. In 2006, Kilimangalam village got UNESCO award for its creativity in making choreograph meets. This village is situated 13 kilometers from Shornur railway station. നമസ്കാരം, ഞാൻ ശ്രുതിക, ബരൂർ ഹയർ സെക്കൻഡറി സ്കൂളിലെ +2 വിദ്യാർത്ഥിനിയാണ്. എൻ്റെ ഒപ്പം ഒരാൾ കൂടെ ഉണ്ട്, അഷിത. നമസ്കാരം, ഞാൻ അഷിത. ഞാൻ SMS സ്കൂൾ ഷൊർണൂരിലാണ്, +2 വിദ്യാർത്ഥിനിയാണ്. കേരളത്തിലെ തൃശൂർ ജില്ലയിലെ കിള്ളിമംഗലം എന്ന പ്രദേശത്തെ ലോക ജനതയ്ക്ക് പരിചയപ്പെടുത്തി കൊടുക്കാൻ സാധിച്ച ഒരു വ്യക്തിയാണ് പ്രഭാവതി അമ്മ. Mrs. P. Prabhavati, who started her weaving practice since 18 years old, is a living traditional weaver.
All right, and you really should go onto the site to watch the complete videos of all the winners. From the current site, if you're on the current site's website, which is shared at the end of this presentation, if you just change the year number in the URL to 2015, you can see last year's, as well as we will be sending out links to all the sites referenced to all attendees after the webinar as well. So you'll be able to navigate to that without a problem. Okay, I'm going to pass it off to Vinod now, and Vinod's going to tell you about his and his students' experiences.
Thank you, Charles, for the good introduction, and Betty for introduction to the folklore and traditional knowledge. And I'm going to share you the challenges and experiences we have faced and the goals we have achieved through this challenge. When we came to know about this folklore challenge, actually we were thinking about basically on two objectives actually. One is actually whether we can make a film or something which will connect the new generation close to the tradition. So because we are a group of people from the banks of River Nila in Kerala, India, and we started a NGO almost 10-12 years back actually. So we were trying to create a platform for the new generations to know, learn and understand the traditional knowledge systems around in that village and the community. So we were thinking about how we can connect students to the traditional knowledge and trying to explain and trying to help them to understand the folklore of that particular river Nila and the areas around that actually. So that was the first objective, and bring people close to the tradition and the customs. And second, we were thinking whether this film can make any impact to the society or something it can give it back to the society, because if you look at it, most of the traditions are some of the traditions are vanishing, and we need to do something critically, something strong to get those traditions back. So we were thinking whether we can do something substantial to make impact in the process of safeguarding those traditions. So those were the two objectives or two primary goals when we looked at the challenge. And the subsequent slides I can explain you the process we have taken to define that. So look at from two angles. One is actually what the students gained and the impact made on them actually, and the benefits they gained from this challenge. It's basically they got a chance to learn the mat weaving community customs and the process of mat weaving, different designs they make, the structure they go through, the materials they collect. So they've gone through that process of meeting the Prabhavati, Mrs. Prabhavati is the person who started this and trying to run this institution. And they met her many times and trying to understand the tradition. It was practiced by a particular community, and the students were trying to meet them, collect the information and related to from where they're getting the raw material, how they're making the mat, and from where they're getting the orders, and from where they are selling it, all this information. And that benefited them to get deep understanding about the challenges on preserving the traditions actually. If you look at it from folkloristic or any traditional knowledge point of view, most of the traditions are vanishing, and of course, as Betty mentioned, the folklore is the key characteristic of folklore is actually change. So we cannot change that, or we cannot stop the change process, but we can definitely make sure that the knowledge of a tradition pass it from one generation to generation. Of course, it is prone for changes, but the students can deeply understand the social issues they face, challenges they face to safeguard these traditions. And they can try to learn how to interview a person and how to collect the information, how to map the relationship, the data with the structure of the information they're collecting, and documenting and making a film actually. So it's basically the student goes through like various process actually. So like identifying a correct theme, then meeting that community and spending time with the community to try to understand their structure, then the systems that they follow, their rituals and the behavior, the customs and everything. Then try to see whether we can collect everything and put together in a format which can communicate easily to other people. And then they can, the process actually help the students to get a lot of recognition from their schools and then the teachers and then academia. And so then their institutions start, really appreciated their efforts, and that benefited them to, get serious about the traditions and the culture they do actually. So if you look at it in a nutshell, it's really benefited the students, and probably in the future they can be the ambassadors of the tradition actually. They can take actions to safeguard any traditions. So the younger ages, if you bring them close to the traditions more, it's easy that they can follow, they can learn, and they can practice it, and they can pass it on to the next generation. So those are the key impacts which made in the film actually. So that's from the students' point of view. The next slide, probably we can see what the community gained from that actually. So as I mentioned in the beginning, when we approached this challenge, we had two goals in front of us. One is what the student community can learn from this challenge. Second is what the community can benefit with this film. So looking at the student side, of course, the student got good exposure and they able to learn and understand the culture. But very honestly, this made a drastic impact in the life of Prabhavati. She has been trying to survive or trying to take this alive and take it forward. And she was the only one surviving in that tradition and trying to take things forward actually. So when the film came to the international media, in the online media, a lot of people started watching it, and because of that, we were trying to bring in so much information, the crux of the information fitted into this less than 10 minutes, and that was the challenge we were looking at actually. With the less time duration, can we bring the history of the tradition or the culture, the tradition, and the challenges and the solutions? So we're trying to pack everything in an 8 to 10 minutes time. So this film reached to so many people, and a lot of media started attending it. The print media, national and international, and the state level newspapers started sharing her story, because she has been trying to survive and she was alone in this process. She didn't get any help initially, but now she's getting a lot of support, and it's created a lot of impact in that. Now she's in the process of revamping the entire institution, and she has got a lot of support from the government sector and the private sector. So we are trying to see that the short film, and we didn't really look at the challenges it could make, but luckily it's got good attention in the media, and people started talking about. Actually, it made a larger impact in the community. So we'll look at the next slide, and we can see that so actually, I just outlined that how the process we were making the film. So as I rightly mentioned, the goals we set, and we identified 2 students from the junior team of Wiley Folklore Group. We have a junior team, and we were trying to teach what we learned from the masters and the aged people or the practitioners, and we'll try to teach them to the new generation. So we identified 2 people who are good in communicating, who has got that acumen to go and meet people, spend time, because we need a lot of patience to talk to the aged people and understand their issues, challenges, and everything. So first was the identifying 2 students from our junior team, and we encouraged them to go and meet Prabhavati and sit with her, understand the problem, challenges, the route she has taken, the challenges she has faced, and everything. And then once that exercise, we took 2-3 weeks for us, multiple visits to her place. Then when we collected the data, we came back to our desk, and we're trying to sort of creating the storyboards trying to look at, okay, what are the key challenges she's facing. She's facing issues with the raw materials. She's not getting any support from the community for taking it forward. She's not able to find market for her products. So there are a lot of challenges she's facing. So we were sort of trying to bring key challenges into the film and showcase to the people and to the world. And we outlined the script and we put the storyboards. Okay, this is scene one, what we're going to do. And so we want people who are watching the video should have full picture of the community, where it is located, and the challenges they're facing. So we lined it in a way like we start with the story and goes through slowly to their culture, tradition, and the community, and finally we will explain how we can take it, make it survived in that present situation. And we encourage the students to go a couple of times to meet and take sessions and interviews and a couple of times. And once they're familiarized, and because they don't find, because most of them are first time facing the camera, so we encourage them to have multiple mock sessions and interviews. And then finally we had one day we set for the recordings, and we had a live recording, and we had the voiceovers recorded separately, and then mix it using a small software. So this is a process we have taken to explain this film. Yeah. So we'll move to the next slide, Charles. Yeah. So basically there are two lessons we have learned from this, because we have started an archiving project way back in 2008, and the goal was to document the cultural landscape of a river. And we were looking at we were looking at some corporate, somebody to fund us for the project to take it forward, because documenting the cultural landscape of river, there are so many communities living in the banks of the river. And what challenge we find is actually the time it takes to document that, and the effort involved in that, the money involved in that, and looking at the constraints of resources, we were not able to take the documentation process forward actually. So we were looking at alternate options. We thought the students are going to be the major source of collecting information, because they are fresh with their minds, they have a lot of energy, and their curiosity and the interest to learn and understand make the difference. They can go, and more interestingly, they work very well with the traditional people, because they have the patience, and the traditional people always find interesting, because the students, the new generation coming forward to learn this actually. So it formed a meaningful connection with the community, increased motivation and participation in the cultural preservation activities. And we can see the overall engagement of these two students in the YLE activities. We can see because they actively participate in our process, because that kind of exposure they have received actually. So that shows, improving their leadership and their skill sets to interact with the people, taking things forward, and taking lead roles in the preservation of these skill sets. So that is a great thing. So in a nutshell, what we learned is actually tap onto the huge volume of student population in the world, and they all can come back and start documenting the knowledge nourished or in the practiced around their place in the village or in the city or wherever it may be. If they can start documenting it, and then that is a good practice actually, because they are the future generation of our country or the nation or in the world actually. So if we can catch them the right age, and we can connect them with the tradition and knowledge, so the more possibility that they continue with the tradition and knowledge actually. So that's a great learning we had from this exercise, and we are continuing with that learnings we had with this challenge. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bernard.
Sure.
So right now, you guys are probably wondering, what resources do you have to both teach and inspire your students to participate in this challenge? The first resource, and I'm just going to show you because I'll point out visually where you can find it on the website in a minute, are a series of videos. One is an introductory video that explains the challenge, what it is, what its components are, and then after that main introductory video are a series of inspirational videos from winners from previous years, which really shows a wide range of diversity in the types of challenges that students submitted. So it'll give your students a really good idea of the different types of ways that they can participate in this challenge. So our Get Inspired videos are one resource. The second resource, and this is really the primary resource, is the Teacher's Resource Packet, which is downloadable in PDF form on the main website. So this is an image of the bottom of the home page of the challenge. When you scroll down, you'll see these three areas here, and you can click on the links below them to download any information that's in there. In the middle, you can access the videos that I just mentioned on the previous slide, and on the right, you can access the Teacher's Resource Packet. So what is the Teacher's Resource Packet, and how can it help you and your student? Well, first of all, it includes all necessary forms that you're going to need to complete and possibly sign and then upload in your when you're submitting your entry. The second thing is that it gives a really nice guide for students to refer to about what the folklorist process is and the steps that it involves that Betty spoke to earlier. Third, it includes, and this is the key resource for students, a student folklorist field notebook. This field notebook is pretty much a step-by-step guide for them, helping them both prepare and then carry out all the actions they need to interview and then create their final presentation. And the Global Folklorist Interview Guide is a specialized guide, and also includes step-by-step information on how to prepare for the interview and how to write good questions so that they can get a lot out of that interview. And then last, some quick reference submission checklist and scoring rubric. The scoring rubric will be helpful to review just to see what high scores get in the past. And the submission checklist is a nice checklist to make sure that at the end all your efforts are rewarded and you've done everything you need to by the deadline. Okay. So I'm going to pass it off to Betty at this point, and she's going to explain to you a little bit more about the Folklorist Fieldwork Notebook and how it's used for the student.
Thank you, Charles, and I also wanted to say thank you to Vinod for that wonderful testimony of working with the kids in your part of India. The Folklorist Fieldwork Notebook we're pretty proud of. It's a great tool for guiding kids through the challenge. It's both a workbook and a planning tool. And it also could be really a great tool for teachers in assessing this project if you're using it for a classroom project, because there are places for kids to fill in and doodle and, like document their process as well. And I think it also is attractive and makes a good keepsake for students to remember their experience with the challenge and meeting the tradition bearers that they interview. So this is the cover. I want to go to the next page. So this is, I'm not going to go through it page by page, but it has 13 pages altogether. This first page just kind of introduces students to some of the terminology. Why do we call it field work, and what is a tradition bearer? Those kinds of things, and then we go from there into various steps. Just wanted to show you page 6, which I can't stress the importance of forming good questions in planning an interview. So as Charles said, there is a whole guide for questions, but there's also this area that students can think about good questions and jot some of those down. Then on page 10, we really, a key part of this is that we want students to be able to reflect on their process, on their interview. How did it go? What did they learn? What might this mean for the community, as you saw with Vinod's project with the mat weaver. So reflection is an important part of the process as well. And then I just wanted to show you one more page, page 12. Sharing the story, not only sharing the story through the challenge, through uploading it to the challenge and having it judged for a prize, but also sharing with their peers, sharing with people in the community, and getting some feedback for their draft and helping polish it, and then actually maybe planning a special event as well for the community to show off what they've done. So we are encouraging people to, the kids, to share their product in more ways than one. So that's that.
Thanks, Betty. So the support that is available to students, I mentioned earlier that students have online resources as well. So they can both chat with experts or chat with student ambassadors. And student ambassadors are winners of previous year's competitions. So we ask them to help kids that are entering this year, and basically any questions that are posted. They're a great resource to ask, as well as chatting with the experts. So we also publish a series of blogs that you can access on the website as well. And we'll post them throughout the competition, both to inform students as well as to inspire them. So I mentioned earlier, and Betty spoke to this as well, the importance of asking great questions in an interview. So this interview guide is one of the components in the teacher's resource packet that's really necessary in addition to the Folklorist notebook for students to use, and really, really helpful in helping them prepare questions for the interview that, like I mentioned before, are going to solicit meaningful information and interactions that can be documented on video between the tradition bearers and the kids themselves. So just wanted to highlight that resource that's contained within the packet, as well as this next resource that I mentioned before, the submission checklist. So this is really just procedural, making sure that everything regarding your presentation fits the criterion, such as that it's 6 minutes or fewer, that you have signed releases from the tradition bearer, as well as the adult representative for the students, as well as some other things, including an image that you'd like displayed with your entry. Okay, so we hope that you've been inspired and you're now excited to get your students ready to join the challenge and find a tradition and share it with the world, as well as learn all about the folklorist process and just all in all deepen their connections to the real world around them and kind of bring learning outside of the classroom. So where can you get more information from here? So the main challenge website is at the top of your screen. You can also get there in short version by just going to challenges.epals.com, and from there you'll see an image of the giant red banner that you've seen throughout this presentation, and if you just click on it, you'll be taken to the home page of the challenge. And from there, if you go down to the bottom of the page, like I explained earlier, you'll have access to the downloadable teacher's resource packet, as well as access to the Get Inspired videos that you can show your students. If you are at the main challenge and you simply change the 6 to the 5, it'll take you to last year's challenge. And from there, you'll see that you can click on winners, and that is how you can access all the videos that were submitted last year, as well as access the interactive map that I showed you earlier. So if you or your students were to have any questions throughout the entire process or needed any support, you can certainly contact us at our support desk email at folklorist@cricketmedia.com. Again, any question or any request. And then also, just mentioning again, consult the expert forums, encourage your students to get onto the blog and ask questions. Oftentimes the insights from the students are invaluable to helping them brainstorming and get past where they're at in their current state of creating their entry. So one more time, thank you very much for all your time. I'm going to open it up now. I'm sorry I did close the mic earlier, everybody, mostly just because there was a background noise that I couldn't get to disappear. So let me make sure that everybody can actually talk. Is anybody trying to speak that cannot be heard? If you could type a message in the chat area, if anybody's asking a question. cannot be heard. All right, well, feel free to leave the webinar at this point. We thank you for your time. I'm going to keep the webinar open for a few minutes to see if anybody does indeed have any questions. So thank you for attending, and like I said before, we will contact all attendees with an email that will have some of the resources referenced in this presentation. Thank you.